Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. We would really appreciate if you could rate us in the apps where you're listening to this podcast: Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Spotify. This way more people will learn about the podcast and the truth about the war in Ukraine. My name is Artem, and here is the news. For 278 days, Ukraine stands strong against the forces of the Russian invasion. Foreign ministers of 7 northern European countries, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, visited Ukraine yesterday, reports Interfax Ukraine. They met with the president and prime minister. According to the president Volodymyr Zelensky, they discussed Ukraine's needs for protection and reconstruction, as well as further cooperation in the defense and energy spheres, in the reconstruction projects and in sanctions. The Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal discussed with partners weapons, finance and sanctions against the aggressor state. He said that Ukraine expects the 9th sanctions package of the EU to include full-fledged disconnection of Russian banks from SWIFT and the prohibition of entry into the EU for Russian citizens. Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov said that over the past 9 months, Russia has carried out more than 16,000 missile strikes on Ukraine, reports Deutsche Welle. He stressed that 97% of Russian targets are civilian. Reznikov also informed that 101 women who served in the military died at the front, 50 considered missing and 100 were wounded, reports Ukrainska Pravda. During his speech at the 6th Women's Congress in Kiev, Minister of Defense added that 350 women were awarded state awards and 2 received the title of Heroes of Ukraine posthumously. In total, almost 60,000 women currently serve in the Ukrainian army, 18,000 women are civilian employees of the armed forces, 5,000 women are on the front line. Russian missiles damaged recently repaired pumping station of the Mykolaiv Vodokanal municipal enterprise that provided the city with fresh water, reports Fakty. For a time, water intake for Mykolaiv, a city of 500,000 residents, will be carried out from the Bug estuary, but this water can only be used as technical. Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Oleksiy Danilov, believes that the best and most effective solution of Ukraine's energy problem is missiles with a range of 800 kilometers and more, reports LBUA. He said that these types of missiles will allow for significant savings on generators. Currently, Ukraine only has Soviet-made missiles .U with a range of up to 120 kilometers and US-made HIMARS with an effective range of about 80 kilometers. The General Staff of Ukraine informs that the Russian army intends to go on the offensive on the Liman, Bakhmut and Avdiivka fronts, reports Unian. At the same time, they focus on the defense in the Zaporizhia, Kryvyi Rih and Kherson fronts. Pope Francis called Ukrainians a nation of martyrs because of Russian aggression, reports Radio Liberty. In an interview with journalists, he specified that if there is a martyred people, then there is someone who tortures them. The Pope expressed the belief that the most cruel are probably those who are from Russia but do not belong to the Russian tradition, for example Chechens and Buryats and so on. But he also stressed that the one who attacks is the Russian state. He also added that on the second day of the full-fledged war suggested going to Russia for negotiations, but Moscow refused. Previously, Pope Francis was criticized for portraying both Ukrainians and Russians as equal victims of the war. If you like what we do and would like to tip us, you can now do so directly to our PayPal. Check out the link in the description to this episode for more details. And as usual, you can subscribe to our Patreon. In gratitude for your help, we will give you access to a series of exclusive episodes on wartime life in Ukraine. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.